Hi, and welcome to the Umbrella Films podcast. This is where we break down commercials, feature films, and all kinds of other productions. My name is Joshua Dixon. I'm an executive producer at Umbrella Films based in Bangkok, Thailand. Please make sure to share and subscribe so you can see more content like this. Please remember to visit us at umbrellafilms.com. And if you're ever in need of any kind of film production in Asia, please do get in touch with us. Today, I've got one of our in-house producers and directors, Arthur Boone, and we're going to be discussing how he produced and directed a Disney Plus commercial. So let's just get straight into it.
Cool.
This is our very first podcast, by the way. So this is kind of new for us.
Yeah. So please forgive us if we make any mistakes or look goofy.
But let's do this. Let's just go ahead and watch the actual commercial. So this is a 30-second spot. What is this?
So the full spot is 60 seconds. It is made for airing on out-of-home media and online social medias.
Yeah.
And it's for the 1-year anniversary of Disney Plus being in Thailand.
Yeah.
So
cool. Yeah. So we'll just go ahead and play it right now. So Eric, let me know when you're ready. All right, and here we go. Okay, cool. So that was a spot. First off, Arthur, I want to bring up something that was very, very neat about this actual production. That I don't want to say that it's different so much from all the other productions we do, but something that I noticed was that the crew on this one, like everyone had this attitude that was really enjoyable, like more so than not more so than normal, but like everybody really seemed to like kind of act as a family on this one.
Yeah.
If you remember Fern, who, just so everyone knows out there, is one of our prior production coordinators that used to work with us full time. She worked with us freelance on this job, and afterwards she put up this Facebook post that talked about like how it was such a good experience.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that like maybe some of this came down to something that I observed was how much time we actually had to produce this whole thing. Like we've done spots like this like in 1 or 2 days before, right? But we had 3 full days on this one.
Yeah. I think for me, so and not to brag, right? Not to make myself sound, but I think it starts with the director and the producer, right? In terms of we set the tone, we set the pace of how work is going to be. Because I actually had like a really good heart-to-heart speak with the art team as well. What a lot of people don't know is for this particular project, the art team bared a lot of the brunt of the work, right? Because we had such a short pre-production period that they literally had, like that flower house, they literally had a day to put it together. They had only 1 or 2 days before that to go and rent all the flowers and everything. So they really didn't have too much time. They had 6 locations that they had to set up, and they only had something like 3 days to get everything ready for a 3-day shoot with 6 locations. So they bared a lot of the brunt, and after a shoot was done, I had a call, and I was like, Pitam, which is our art director, like, I'm really sorry that it was probably crap for you, right? And he was like, actually, no, it's really fun. It was stressful, but it was really fun because everybody wanted to do a good job. I think myself and Tori, who was the producer that we brought in to help run it, we did a good job in making the people we're working with understand that first and foremost, it's a job, but why is this job special? Because it's for Disney Plus, which is a reputable brand. And also, we briefed them properly, made them understand, what the spirit of the show is. What are we trying to convey? We're trying to talk about magic. We're trying to talk about these fond moments that everybody has with Disney and Disney brands coming to life. And I think that's part of what the magic was. It's like, even Tam was like excited because, he's always been somebody who's into Marvels. So getting to work with that kind of brand also brought it out.
Getting to work on a actual spot that has Marvel in it.
This is for everyone. That's kind of cool, right? Yeah. And then I also noticed like the AD, everyone has their favorite scene, right?
Yeah, see, this is one thing that's really, really cool about this, right? Is like, it wasn't a, excuse me, it wasn't like just a spot that's focused on Marvel, right? You had Marvel, you have Pixar, you had Star Wars, you had, what were the other?
So we had, and just before we go to that, like the other thing is a lot of people on this project, and this is probably why you feel like it's a family project a little bit in a way, is everybody are people who I've worked with before a lot for years and years, even before I joined Umbrella Films, right? So when they found out that I was directing a spot for a brand that's reputable and like it's my big chance, basically, they kind of came behind it because they wanted to support me, which I'm really humbled by. And that's why I posted like a long thank you note to everybody who was involved, including yourself, because like, I think I can only go so far without people that support me, right?
Yeah.
And everybody wanted to do that. So I'm humbled by that. And it's the one thing that makes me feel like, I'm very, very lucky in that way. And then to answer your question, we had Disney, Pixar, we had the Marvels, Star Wars, National Geographic, and Hot Stars, which is like drama.
Local content.
Yeah, more local content. And it has to be in that order as well. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And just so everyone, excuse me, I just got over COVID. So, just so, not like yesterday. This is like 2 weeks ago. So I'm just killing the cough now.
Show me your test results.
Yeah. Don't worry. We all took tests to get in, COVID tests.
Yes, we all did.
So, sorry, what was I saying? Oh, so I was executive producer on this, and I did bear a little bit of like some other producing responsibilities.
Yeah.
And actually, I kind of took on some of your responsibilities on other jobs, because we were not entirely sure that we were going to get this.
Yeah.
Like, if you remember, I was like pitch for it. Let's just not get our hopes up on this one because we pitched for several other Disney spots before, right? And it just ended up, everything came together and we won it. And I was kind of shocked. I was kind of surprised of it. And I was like, okay, well, this is great. Like, I'm going to take on all of your other productions so that you can focus on this. Because with Disney, it was like, we have to hit this out of the park, like there's no, like the quality that's required for this, the attention, which like when we dealt with the clients for Disney, right? Like they were extremely knowledgeable, much so more than typical clients. Like they knew technical things, right? Like they knew, like I remember them asking for editing files and saying stuff like about how to like turning on the correct tracks. And I don't remember like importing, I don't know, videos and turning on,
Yeah. I mean, I think the one that was most interesting for me was when we talked to Chris, who was the creative director for it, and he was like talking about rendering time and stuff like that. Yeah. I was like, wow.
Yeah, and it wasn't just like a client like saying like, hey, I've heard this before or do this or whatever, right? Like it was actually like he knew exactly what he was talking about. Like there was no faking in it at all. Like he had experienced this before or even worked in post or something at one time, so I mean that goes to show like the level of expertise that Disney has anyways, which was actually I really enjoyed I really liked working for these clients because it was very much a nice collaboration because we didn't get like the typical ridiculous ideas that you get from a client, you know, where it's kind of like, you know, well, cool, that's great. I know we need to make that deadline, but we want to do all this other stuff, you know, like we never got that sort of thing with them. Like they're actually kind of like my preferred type of client. Like I don't know about you, but I would love to just keep working for clients like this. Like,
oh yeah.
You know, it's no nonsense is the thing. There's no nonsense with them.
I think by far best client experience working with them because they're knowledgeable and but also reasonable.
Not discrediting our other clients in any sort of way.
In terms of like,
but we only had like literally 3 weeks total from winning the job to delivering the job.
We had 4 weeks from winning the job to delivering the job.
Yeah.
But I mean, within the 4 weeks, a lot happened.
Yeah, no, like, but my point in bringing that up is because if we'd done this with some other clients, if we'd done this, there would have been no way it would have happened. I mean, that's literally like winning it, then doing storyboarding, animatics, you know, scouting, shooting, and then post with all the CG and everything that you saw on the spot, right? Like the Doctor Strange portal.
You want to show the schedule?
Well, we can. I don't know. I don't have it queued up, but let's do this. Let's jump into talking about the actual process from the beginning to the end. So, excuse me. So the casting, why don't you explain when we won what the big challenge was that you immediately saw? So they said, okay, you won this. And that's when we were like, okay, how are we going to deliver this in 4 weeks, right? What was your immediate like plan of action? Like where did you start so that you knew where to attack first? Okay.
So the first thing was when we were doing the pitch, I kind of, luckily when we were doing the pitch, they already had a story in mind, right? So that kind of helps us like 50% along the way because it's a pre-approved storyline. So we didn't have to think the story from scratch. So that was good. And then luckily a good friend of mine, Faith, is he's a great storyboard artist. So I called him up and I was like, dude, I need you to make storyboards for me. Because the original script was only a picture with long descriptions, right, for each scene. So first things first, even before we got the job, I asked him to make a storyboard for this job. If we win it, I'll pay you. If not, you have it on your, on your portfolio as doing something for Disney Plus. And then we won. So once we won, the client said, okay, love your work. These are some changes we need to make because. So we had that initial meeting. And then I conveyed those changes to the storyboard artist so he can make the adjustments. And first things first is I made a schedule. It's every job we start with a schedule, right? So we know we have a timeline of when things need to get done by, what things have to happen first, and then we work as close to that schedule as possible. If we do need to make adjustments, we do, which we had along the way. So first thing is we begun casting immediately because we didn't have really enough time to look at photos, do casting and all that. So first things first, we had to start casting. Simultaneously, we had to begin sourcing location, just photos first before we went out for a scout. And then while we were doing, when we got those two kind of first set of photos and stuff like that, then we started getting to the next part, which was, I think you can go to V4 over there. There we go.
So everyone that's watching on video or not watching on video, we're pulling up a schedule right now. Actually.
Yeah. So
with this one right here?
I think so. That should be it. So yeah, we basically started with casting and locations first. And then once we got location photos that we felt like the ones I felt comfortable with, what I started doing.
Just so everyone can see. So here's what the schedule looked like for Disney.
Yeah. I think this is for post-production, Josh.
Oh, it is for post, sorry.
Yeah.
So this one then?
So, calendar, can you go to 3? Apologies.
That's okay. This is the magic of.
Yeah.
It's not movie magic, it's podcast magic. So
There's going to be edits in the middle.
there's not.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay, I think it's that one. So yeah, casting, location. Once we got some casting, we send it to the clients so that we can do callbacks and actual, casting. Once I found locations that I liked, I immediately sent it to Lena, who's our in-house overall graphics person, and she started making what we call KVs, key visuals for the locations. So we kind of knew what they were going to look like after we did our, once we did the magic of adding and subtracting things. So those are the 2 things we tackled first, casting, locations.
Let's just look at some KVs. So we have, some of these are storyboards, some of these are KVs. So this is quite small, but let's see. Oh, sorry, they're here. So
So that's the storyboard, yeah.
So this is pretty low res. I don't know why it's so low res, but this is just explaining how the shark shot was going to work, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about that, but
Okay, so, yeah, I've kind of posted this a little bit on my Instagram. Stole your thunder. I'm sorry about that.
no, it's okay.
But there are a couple scenes where people, like friends of mine, have asked, how we did it. So this was the shark scene. The way we did it is, even before we went to look at the locations, the idea was always to have like a shark in a floating market, be it if it was going to jump or it was just going to be shadow, something like that. We were still debating that, but we knew it's going to be that. So first things first, we figured out what we were going to do. It was going to be a shark, shadow, under the water, top-down shot. And then the second shot would be a side shot of some sort where we see the fin kind of come up. And then our boat lady would be interacting with it, like surprised by it and stuff.
Yeah.
So once we knew that, we could take those storyboards and start talking to the CG team.
Right.
Yeah.
So you also tried a few other things too, like we thought about doing like a practical fin and
Yeah. So I really wanted the fin originally to be practical, so that there was, when you mix practical with VFX, it gives that kind of realistic feeling.
you have something that's real, right?
Yeah.
So you're limiting the amount of something that's created that's actually fake.
Yeah. So throughout the whole ad, everything is a mixture of practical and VFX kind of and CG kind of put together.
Yeah. And plus one thing also that I want to point out is like whenever you're working with CG and you're using water, like that is a really, really time consuming thing because it's having to generate it repeatedly.
Yeah.
And you're having to see like how it interacts with like the base of the fin, like right here, right? Like it comes up around it, right? Which the CG team in the end did a fantastic job. Like if you look at it, the final
It's after this.
There
we go. Before this.
right
There.
here. So like this, right? Like this is, so you have someone off camera like bumping someone from the art department, right?
Yeah, in the water, shaking the boat.
Yeah, they're bumping the boat, right? And then you have her reacting to nothing, right? And then in post, and they're putting this fake shark fin with this water coming over the top.
Yeah.
So
what we did is, once I wanted it to be practical, ended up not happening.
yeah,
It ended up not happening because it just, with water dynamics and all that.
so here's
didn't work.
just as well. Here's what it looked like,
Yeah.
right? So this guy was the one that was bumping everything, right? Yeah.
And then, but what we could do was, because we already they had the storyboard, we talked to the art team, we talked to the CG team, and we kind of figured out what we were going to do. The CG team needed to know measurements. So they wanted to know the color of the water. They wanted to know how deep into the water, at which times, how visible it is once you go in. So we had to go, when we went to the floating market, we put a stick into the water to if it's that photo on the bottom left there.
Yeah.
And then we kind of like got measurements of how many meters deep or how many centimeters before the how do you call it, the we couldn't see the tip
Yeah.
of the rod anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And
So,
then-
so you knew how the CG water had to
Yeah.
replicate that, right?
Exactly. And we found out like, okay, like what time of day, how does the shadow affect the water, right? Because if you can see like the stick's a little bit bent out, and part of that is also because of sunlight diffraction and stuff like that. So we had to take all these measurements first. And then even though we didn't do the practical stuff, because we had the footage of the practical tests, so how the fin came out of the water and stuff like that, we shared it with the CG team, so they were able to do less guesswork. They didn't have to render randomly too many times because they kind of understood, oh, this is how it looks like in the footage. It doesn't hold.
Yeah,
this
that's
too
a good
much.
testament to preparing and
Yeah.
preparing beforehand. Which actually we kind of jumped straight into producing this shot. There's a few other things that I do want to touch base. Maybe we should go over first real quick, and that is winning the spot, right? Like, how did you pitch for it?
Okay.
Why don't we talk about that, and then the call where we actually did the presentation, right? Where we actually did the presentation, and then they called back like 2 hours later and confirmed that we had won.
Yeah. So about the pitch.
Yeah. Let's talk about your treatment,
Okay.
because I think that's one thing that a lot of people like. So the whole point of this podcast, right, is to try to show people how production is done right, and everyone's always interested in like the cool behind the scenes, the gadgets, the camera cranes, the lenses and lights and all that and everything. But like there's a whole other process to the business that I think everyone does not see until like you experience it firsthand, right? And I think that's what we can like really communicate with, and that's how do you get from not having the client to that production day.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, if you don't win the job, you don't get to rent cameras, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. So we were approached by like another production house that we've worked with several times. They're also an agency as well in Singapore. That are great friends of ours, Moving Bits. They're really, really cool guys.
Yeah.
Our companies are so similar, which is why we work really, really well together. And so like we're almost set up in the exact same way, I feel like. And so that is it's cool. It's someone. This is our cleaning lady in the background. So
Yeah,
it's fine.
It doesn't get more real than this, guys.
Yeah. So we're actually in our office, and people are coming and going. But so with the sorry, where were we at?
So
the pitching process,
Yeah.
right? So we're working with Moving Bits, right? The company in Singapore, and they had Disney as a client, and we're based in Thailand, right? So like we're basically like the Thailand arm, if you want to think of it in that way. And so we pitched on it. The opportunity came through them. You got a brief,
yeah.
right? Let's start there about the brief that you got.
Okay, so it's really weird. They contacted us and were like, "Hey, can we get on a call?"
They're going to watch this, remember?
Yeah, but they got on a call and they were like, "Hey, can we get on a call with you? There's this Disney Plus job that we really want you to pitch for." And I was like, "Cool," but at the time, like, so just so you guys know, like, I talked with Josh and we were like, "This is the worst time," because it's like in that same week that they were asking us to create a treatment and pitch for it, I was scouting for a feature film, right? And we were also like getting ready to do other commercials and stuff like that. Like everybody was packed.
We had another production at the same time for Bloomingdale's.
Yeah.
Another one
for Meta.
We may have to bleep that out later. I don't know. But
sorry.
For a very big social media network that everyone knows of, we had another one for that. We also had another one for. There was something else.
I know I was sending some info out for TikTok and stuff like that too.
Yeah, I don't know, but we had like 3 or 4 major productions at that time, and that's where I jumped in and took over for you completely.
Thank you. Thank you, my good sir.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay to produce like 5 productions at the same time. No worries. But so the brief.
So they came in and like basically briefed me on it, and I would say they had 50 to 70% of the idea behind the commercial there already.
Yeah.
Like everything you kind of see, for the most part, was there. It was more refining it. So they asked me, hey, go nuts, refine it, have fun with it, and then please provide us a treatment by Monday. And
this was on what day?
This was on Thursday.
Thursday, yeah.
So at first I wasn't available because we had all these things, but luckily enough, we were able to push it back to Wednesday, and you helped cover for me on some stuff. Andrew helped cover it as well. So,
and Andrew's
one of our producers.
He's our head of production.
Oh yeah, forgot.
Yeah.
Got a promotion.
Yeah.
Anyway, so once everybody helped cover it, I had a couple days to kind of make the treatment, which I was kind of panicking because that's not a lot of time to make a treatment for a company like Disney Plus, right?
Yeah.
But that's the opportunity you have, so might as well go nuts with it. And so I did, and I think one thing for anybody who's learning to make a treatment, and I'm not the master of treatments by any chance.
Yeah.
I'm not the best person at making treatments, but one thing I've learned is if you do your homework to understand what you're trying to do, what you want to achieve, and you have passion.
Right.
Yeah, which I got loads of passion for Disney Plus, right? Always been a fan of Star Wars, Marvels, and all that stuff. If you have that and you can portray it in your treatment, I think that helps a lot. And I did that. Wednesday, we had that meeting with the clients, went through it, and they loved it. And I think one of the reasons they mentioned that they decided to go with us is because they saw that passion come through in the treatment, in the way I spoke of the stories we're trying to tell. And I think it reflected in the characters and all that. And I think that's why they went for us.
Yeah, no, I do too.
Yeah.
So what was there anything specific that you remember creating the treatment, like that you extended upon what they had said, like creatively?
Yeah. So when I went through the creative, I was kind of figuring out, how do I make this better, right? That's the director's job. Is there's an idea there, how do you make it happen, and how do you make it even better? And I think the first thing that I came to, which was part of our limitation as well, with our timing being so short, and being aware of that on a technical level, was like, we're not going to be able to do everything in post. We will have to do things practically. How do I make that work? And I put that as probably one of the most important things in my treatment, which was, we are going to do what Star Wars did, which is have practical and VFX merge and meet in the middle, so that there's that sense of realisticness. That's like this, what we see happening doesn't ever feel fake. It always has to feel real.
Right.
And then I think that's one of the first things I honed into. Second thing I honed into was like, because Disney Plus and all the assets they have such iconic sounds, we need to have those sounds live and come alive. Mm-hmm. And then finally, I think for me, it was the characters as well. Like because for me, the characters, it's still Disney Plus. It still has to have that sense of being an international brand, quality. So I didn't want the characters to be overacting or, just exaggerating their actions. It always had to come from a place where something was real. And because they're acting, if you notice, like even when they're going wow or something like that, it's never exaggerated. It still comes from a place that's real. That plus the VFX plus the sound, I think, grounds everything. Even though it's fantastical, it still has this grounded feeling to all the actions and reactions that we have.
Right.
Yeah. So those are, I think, the three main things I honed on at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's a good base on the brief and the pitch. One thing that was really cool is I think Disney understood how quick this actually had to happen in order to make the deadline, right? And they literally, after we did, because this was all over Zoom, right? We did a pitch on Zoom for them, and literally was it 2 hours after that they confirmed us, which was really good, because I thought it was going to be like this. Oh man, we're gonna have to wait till Monday, and we need to start. We need to have started working over the weekend, right? But I thought it was gonna be this like, we'll get back to you most likely today, and then like 4 days later we get the confirmation, because Disney's got so many levels of like corporate reporting, they've got Disney US, and then all the brands, right? Like Marvel and Star Wars and all those are all other companies under Disney that also have to have some sort of an input and say in it as well.
It was kind of cool though.
It was very cool. It's very cool because obviously not only did we work with Disney, but we worked with all these other brands. And they saw your creative on it, right? And like you were giving feedback on it from those brands. So that's really neat.
Just so you guys know, there was like messages that came in, and every time you get a message from a client saying like, oh, this needs to be adjusted, that needs to be addressed, and
you do this, you go,
oh my God.
Right.
But on this one, it was a situation where like, okay, here are the comments from each brand.
Yeah.
Disney, loved it. What was it? Marvel needs this to be this way. And I was like, I am a little bit anxious about the comments, but the fact that there's like LucasArts said this, it's like,
that's cool.
So cool. Totally worth it.
No, I agree. I think it was really neat.
It was really cool.
Okay, let's do this. Let's get into everything that everybody wants to hear about. So one of the shots that I'd like to talk about first here is the bus scene. So it's a scene, not a shot. Sorry. And it was really cool because the scene of the bus starts in the daytime and then it goes to the nighttime. So let's talk how you actually accomplish that. So I've got here like actually what the set looked like. So if you see, there's all these intelligent lights in the background, right? Like whipping all over the place around it. We're in a studio, right? So the bus is not outside right now. We did shoot the bus outside though as well, right? And it did this transition.
So first and foremost about the scene,
finding the bus.
Well, before even finding the bus, this scene was like probably the one that changed the most. So this was for Pixar. From the very first creative until we actually landed on it being a bus, the creative changed 4 times. And imagine like changing your creative 4 times in a span of 2 weeks, right? And like we literally cannot push the schedule. It's already a tight schedule. So every time we changed creative, it was kind of a little bit stressful. But at the same time, like, and this last time, there was basically, we sent the creative out, and then the team at Pixar were like, well, they're a little concerned about it not being easy enough to recognize that it's a Pixar brand of some sort. So at first we were going to shoot this as a sala. So salas are kind of like these, for those of you who don't know, outside of Bangkok, you have these all everywhere, right? And we want to be inclusive of every kind of demographic. So at first it was like, oh, Sala is perfect because people wait to get on a bus at a Sala, and it's very iconic for, especially in Isan and stuff like that, you'll get it a lot. So we scouted a Sala. We had plans.
Yeah, let's jump to the bus.
Anyways, so they changed it, and then they were like, well, what kind of ideas you have, Arthur? And I was like, let's make it a bus, right? Because the idea was, let's make it a bus where we can see the Four Town Band logo in the background, because they wanted to have like a whole stage drop down behind the
and Four Town is the
band within
the boy
the movie Turning Red. So I was like, we can't have a stage drop down behind them in a sala in the middle of a field. So let's try to take that same idea, but apply it to a working space we could work with, which was the bus. And so we went in so Monday, the creative changed. Tuesday, we found a bus and went to do scouts at like our tech recce, because we were already in that stage of
Right.
production where we were already doing tech recce's. Looked at a bus on Tuesday.
So here's a video of the
Yeah,
Scout.
that's my big butt there. That's Pete, our amazing DOP. And then that's what the bus actually looks like inside. As you can see, like all the seats are torn up, and it really,
So this is kind of like the framework for the bus, essentially. It was the bus, but
it was the bus.
you replaced all the seat covers, essentially,
Yeah,
too.
so we talked to the art department and said, this needs to look better.
Yeah.
And what they did, at first, the idea was just to do fabric covering. Because, buses that go long
Right.
distances will have these kind of like, airplanes have that fabric that goes behind where your head is.
So, sorry, here, let me
Went
talk
from
about
that to this.
So just the bus scene in here.
No, it's the second, it's that one.
So you can see that these seats are all...
If you look during the day, it's much clearer that the seats are all cleaned up. So the
There we
art
go.
team went above and beyond. They said, you know what, your fabric idea, cool, but we're gonna just remake those seats.
Yeah.
And they did it within like 2 or 3 days. They actually tailored leather seat covers to match what was actually there and covered it.
Yeah.
Which was pretty cool. Cleaned up the bus a lot. And that bus, just so you know, barely made it to set. So that bus is like 50 or 60 years
Yeah,
old.
super old school.
Yeah.
Everything about it's old school, including the motor.
Yeah.
Right? So like...
Yeah.
It actually broke down.
Yeah.
Right? Like after we got done shooting. So we shot all this stuff for the end... What was it? The nighttime first, right?
Yeah.
And then we had to move the bus outside the studio, and I think the transmission or something
Blew.
completely went out right as we were moving it outside the studio.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we were only shooting like 50 meters away, so like everyone on the crew just pushed the
Yeah.
bus. Which,
So-
if you're going to push a bus, it's good to have your whole crew, right?
Yeah,
So-
that's pro tip number 1, have a lot of people to push a bus.
Yeah.
I was pushing that bus too, just trying to get it there as soon as possible,
Yeah.
because we had to move from this bus to the rooftop scene, and we knew that there was a chance of rain. So me and the AD, Pete, were all kind of trying to rush that exterior shot so that we can get to the next location
So
before it
real
rains.
quick, let's jump back into the studio and
Yeah.
how we did the nighttime shot first.
Okay, so when we actually were scouting doing recce on the bus, luckily enough, Pete's already worked on this actual bus before on a feature film.
Okay.
So he already knew kind of what the limitations were, so that helped a lot. And then we talked, while we're in the bus, we talked about how this scene's going to work, if it's going to start as a night scene or not. And Pete had this great idea of, well, I can totally make it go from day to night. Like, straight up, can do that, super easy. And I was like, yeah, that's going to happen.
And this is something that you guys had not originally pitched to Disney, right? First, this
Yeah.
is something during the process you and the DOP had collaborated and figured out, right? And then we later told Disney.
Yeah,
Right.
we told Disney.
So this is kind of one of those like little like Easter egg bonus pieces that they get out of it, right?
Yeah. So, like, I had a thought of it, but I never brought it up because I kind of felt like it's not going to be possible. And then Pete mentioned it. We talked about it, and it turned out he had brilliant DOP. He knew exactly how to do it in a simple, easy way, and so we did it.
But then the big thing about that shot, if you
Yeah.
remember, became how we're going to show For Town.
Yeah.
Right? The whole back window,
Yeah.
they wanted to do silhouettes first of the boy band,
Yeah.
right?
So
So talk about that.
So, yeah, they felt like they would do silhouettes and that would sell it as being Four Town actually there. And then we kind of went through this process of 2 processes at the same time, right? We went to the process of...
You did a safety shot.
Yeah, so I personally as a director was like, you know what, let's do what they want, but let's also have backup graphics, which was the actual Four Town logo. Something similar to what was on the back of the stage in the movie. So let's do that as a backup as well.
Right, and just to point out, we originally we were thinking about doing this with green screen in the back.
Yeah, so we
Right.
we
But-
went through the process of thinking, do we do this as green screen? Are we going to use projectors? I think we talked about that at one point.
Projector's what we switched to because the big challenge with doing the green screen is you got all these intelligent lightings all over the place, smoke,
Yeah.
right, and all that stuff makes it very difficult to key and replace.
Yeah, so we talked about green screen projectors. We talked about actually using actual lights shining and just putting. I don't know if there's
Like an
pictures of it or
LED
not.
sign or something
No,
inside, right?
we did cutouts of the characters. So that
Oh,
we
that's
can,
right.
Yeah, lift the characters
Yeah,
in.
I wish I had that queued up.
I think there was, yeah, and then in the end we landed on using an LED screen, because what you get with an LED screen is, it's flexible.
Right.
You get the light shining in. It can be much more dynamic, and it also can act sort of like a green screen in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the actual video, and just so you know, so we did the silhouettes, but in the end, kind of what I thought was going to happen happened, which was the silhouettes didn't work as well as just a logo,
Yeah.
right? But, and here's a little bit of bonus that a lot of people don't know. If you actually look at the film, there's 2 shots in the bus where you can see the background. The first one, it's Fort Town, the logo. But then the second one ended up being just a generic background we had.
Yeah.
And then the clients asked, well, can we add the Fort Town logo to that second shot as well? And that was done in post. We actually just rotoscoped the background and...
Yeah, so actually after we did all this work, the VFX company ended up replacing it, right?
Just for the last one.
The last shot.
Yeah,
okay.
just for that last shot.
So one thing I just want to point out, like, is on the screen here, Eric, if we can switch to it. So we actually had Lena, who did all of our key
KVs,
visuals, which are like mock-ups of your sets, right? And she also did some storyboards, I think, for us for this shot.
She didn't do any storyboards.
Anyway, she's one of our full-time
Yeah.
like visual artists that we have here. She does some production design for us too. She was actually on set live, like that LED screen that you saw is actually just another monitor to her computer. So this was just a big second monitor, and she was live editing everything in After Effects, and then rendering it out and playing it off her computer. So that LED was just a big monitor, so that if we needed to change anything in the background, reframe anything, like she was able to do it live in After Effects.
Yeah.
There, right?
Which was really cool. And I think it was good that we sprung the cash to get an LED screen.
Yeah, it actually helped everything. Well, it's so much better because like the ambient light, it feels like a real image. Replace it with green screen and never looks near as good.
So actually, if you look at one thing about ambient light, and this is when you start getting on a technical level, right? Like at first we were thinking, the ambient light that we're going to get from that LED screen is going to get into the characters. But because we were about 5 meters away from the talent,
Yeah, it's quite far.
none of the ambient light from the LED actually got into the talent, which turned out to be a good thing, because when they actually rotoscoped, because there wasn't that ambient light, it made it much more easy to match.
That's the whole advantage of shooting in a studio, because you can control it completely, and that's something that maybe a lot of people that don't have an opportunity to do that, or they say, like, why spend the money for that?
Yeah.
Like, you control everything completely, and it made our lives easier in post in the end, because we had set it up and planned so that later on, if something has to change, we have the ability to.
Yeah. I mean, also what was kind of, don't want to say by design exactly, but I did know from the start that being a bus, because it's a bus, you have those back windows that are already framed out. That makes it also easier to rotoscope, because there's an actual frame to work, instead of it being like this big wide space where you don't know where beginning and end is, right?
Yeah.
So you can frame everything in there. So that's just like, I think, kind of a little bit of experience where you're like, this is gonna save me
Sure.
later on.
Let's jump real quick over to talk about the house. That's probably one of the things that like one of the most interesting shots ever, right? Because like this is straight up like walking into a set at Disneyland. You know what I mean? It's really, really cool. It's really neat. Like this is the first shot we shot
Yeah.
Right. Like day one, morning, the day before we were there till, well, I don't know. I think the art team was there till, goodness, probably midnight or 1 a.m. or something.
So
setting all the flowers up.
We decided that our team should leave by 10 or 11 because it became a working hazard because it was dark and they didn't have enough working lights. But the whole process of making this house was very interesting, very fun. I actually did a little process breakdown of how we did it on Instagram and Facebook. So
is that on your Instagram right now?
Yeah, it's on my Instagram right now, on my Facebook as well. So
let me just kind of
sure.
See if we can pull up your Facebook.
That was a fun bit.
Prepare for friend requests, Arthur.
So when we first got the creative, this was one of the scenes where I'm kind of proud of. The creative said that, we start out and then we see plants growing.
This here.
Yeah,
okay.
And it was a little vague.
So this is the key visual that Lena did, right?
No, this is a storyboard that my friend did. So what happened was, once we got that creative in, because of the brief and knowing our limitations, my first thought was, okay, the best way to do this is to do it, like I said, practically, and then use VFX to enhance it, right? So I knew that we were going to have to do practical plants and then have, first thing, and it was the thing that we did in the end, was in Flame, we would actually, take the plates of the plants and then enlarge them or have them move a little bit. So there's that hint of life without looking fake or looking like it's 3D, So that's the first thing. And to achieve that, what we did first was storyboard. So we storyboarded it so we could see kind of what it may look like, right? You get an understanding that it's a 2-story house with other houses that are normal next to it, something like that. And then once we did that, the clients loved it. We went to look at locations. And I actually already had a house in mind, which ended up being the house that we shot at. So if you go to the next photo, so we did a scout. Once we did a scout, I kind of knew I was going to go with this house. I started having Lena doing KVs for it. And so she started putting...
And just to back that up, so and also because the terms outside of Thailand are quite different. So the key visual, right, is basically it's a concept.
Yeah. So if you go to...
It's a mock-up of it.
Yeah. So you go to the next photo, you'll see
So this is her KV.
This is her KV. So you might have to go two more photos. Sorry. The next one?
So there's a practical...
Yeah, so what it is she made this KV from that house, because I had a good feeling it was going to be this house. She made the KV, and then we sold it to the client. We had a bunch of revisions, but once it was approved to look like this, we broke it down into what practical is, what would be done practically, and then what would be done in post. Mm-hmm. And the way that we determined that was, if you look at this and you go back one more photo...
Sorry, here we go.
We use basically where would shadows drop.
Okay, right.
Right, and then what would be good foundation, plants, what areas are good foundations for putting the VFX without making it look fake, which was basically anything that was the base of those plants would have to be real. So we did this, and then we broke it down to, okay, what would be VFX, and that's the photo before this. Right, and then we showed the VFX team this, and they were like, cool, that makes a lot of sense. So once we broke this down, and we kind of made our notes we want those roses to kind of grow a little bit in VFX on the, then it became much easier because our art team could go, and they actually hired...
It's a florist? Yeah, for weddings or
events,
right?
So these guys do big events where they have to florify a whole...
Florify.
Yeah, that's the word I'm using for this. Okay. I don't know if that's a technical word or not.
Florified
the house.
Yeah, cool.
And then because they had such accurate KVs, if you look at the house in the final image, I guess, it actually matches. This is some research we did. So we made sure that the majority of plants from the beginning, my intention for this scene was always that the plants should be Thai. So we did research. We found plants that were beautiful, but also grow in Thailand. And we made sure that I think pretty much all of them are plants you can find in Thailand.
Yeah. So let me just
Yeah.
show you the house. So, so she goes here, she looks, does her thing. Encanto, then this. So
And
here's,
that's the final house.
and this is the thing that VFX did. Everyone just wants to watch. Like you see the flowers have like a bit of like movement,
Movement,
and just kind of like growing.
Mm-hmm.
So that was what the VFX was.
Yeah. And like the VFX team actually did, so just on a VFX side.
But Arthur, how did you get all these other flowers?
Okay, so if you go back to my Facebook, I actually have a little bit of that there too. So we did research, and then we did, so if you go...
Here's every single flower name you...
Yes,
you want
just
to know.
because we wanted to make sure like they were all
Thai flowers, yeah.
Okay, I guess I don't have it here. So what
let
we
me,
did...
Let me just find it real quick.
For...
C8015.
Yeah, so...
Eric, where is this clip in here? Where's the clip in here?
Prep,
Prep?
yeah,
No, in the footage folder.
footage,
Next. Disney Plus.
yeah,
Footage.
and then.
This would be day 6 shooting. Okay, got it. So let me just quickly...
So the way we did the flowers, right? I'll just talk while you're finding it. Is, and this is luckily like had enough experience with rotoscoping and plates and stuff to know how to do this, but we did confirm like actually how to do it with the VFX team as well, and that's like where prep comes in, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people say fix it in post. No, you plan it in prep
Yeah.
so that in post you don't have
Yeah.
you know.
So your fixes are minimal.
Yeah. So the way we did it is we basically made bushels of each type of flower, and then we put it against a blue screen and on a turntable. So every time we had 28 different kinds of flowers. So after we shot the house, lighting was pretty much the same. Put it on a blue screen, put the big bushes on, press record, hold on each angle for like 3 seconds, 5
Right.
seconds, and then we turn the turntable slightly. So out of one bush, we can get 10 different angles.
Right.
So 10 different angles, 28 flowers, that's 280 different options for the post
The
house.
VFX team to
pull
pull from, right?
To pull from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just so everyone knows, we didn't do green screen because there's a lot of green.
Yeah.
in the flowers, right?
Exactly.
So,
Obviously. Yeah.
so that's why we did blue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
So that was pretty cool.
And then in the end, you end up with this.
69 layers. They had
69 layers. Cool.
69 layers specifically.
Oh, talk about this, right? So like we have this, you see these flowers creeping up in the background behind her, right?
Yeah.
Creeping up.
Before we get to that, just wanted you to know, 69 layers, that one shot,
Yeah.
rendering out on a single computer, but like a very good computer in the post house, took 3 hours.
Yeah.
Like this one shot, because so many layers were not only there, but they were moving as well.
Yeah.
And it's a testimony to like the hard work he had to put in, Mr. Peter Kim, our flame artist who worked on it.
Yeah.
And it looks exactly like the KV, right?
Yeah.
That's the cool part. It looks like,
Yeah, we delivered very, very close.
yeah.
Yeah.
Even to like the leaves that are on the top that kind of are poking out.
Poking out, yeah,
Yeah, even that.
Yeah, let's talk real quick about
The plants.
Yeah.
So-
So the whole spot starts off with this rocker girl
Yeah.
on. Yeah, let's start there.
So you want to talk about the plants or the girl in
No.
particular?
We'll talk about the girl
later.
on.
Okay. So the plants, it starts out with her, and then as she's watching Encanto, she kind of notices, like, hears and sees these plants coming up, right? So the way we did this was basically a guy's right out of frame on well, we call them pallets here in Thailand. You call them like foundations,
Scaffolding.
right? So he's right outside the frame with scaffolding, and
Yeah,
he's
actually 2 stories up, right? So
Yeah.
we're actually shooting in the bedroom that she actually looks out of.
Yeah. And then so he's actually on scaffolding, and he has a big stick of roses, and he just prods it in.
And I think something that's really, really cool is like the camera movement goes in, it's timed with the flowers, and that's what really makes it feel dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. So Pete did a good job there. I love that, like, by accident, that those like little ones on the bottom
They
kind of flick up.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that's purely by accident, but lovely. It draws more attention to it.
Yeah.
And then on this frame, we kind of had that, like, she comes out and notices what's going on and is amazed by it. Just so you know.
It's the same gag too, right? Like flowers are being lifted in and under.
Yeah, same thing. But just so you know, the flowers on the top right, and this I think was your brilliant idea to add it in, top right.
Thank you.
And then the roses underneath the ones that are moving in, and some of the purple ones there on the top are actually added in post.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay.
So we filled it up even more in
Cool.
post. And you can see, like, our job doing the blue screen worked really well, because I don't think anybody, if I don't tell them, would notice that that's digitally put in.
Well, it's shot in the same sunlight too. You know what I mean? So it's just like a few minutes later. So.
But I also think, like, the reason for that opens this argument, like, well, why not just do it all in post? Well, there's nothing for her to interact with if it's all done in post.
Yeah.
Right. This gives her something to something to actually look at.
Yeah.
And it just feels better for her to act to it. Sometimes, like, on a technical level, but then on a acting level, having something there just really helps the actor.